But you know, every day, Monday through sometimes Saturday, sometimes even Sunday, I hear a mother's cry. I hear a father's yearning to see their child. I hear the voices coming from depression and anxiety, worrying, excessive worrying. You know, mental health is real. Mental health is mental health. So now let's get one thing straight. Mental health is just another form of layer of life that we really need to take serious because it's real. Our minds need as much care as we put attention to the physical part of our body. Now, you wouldn't ignore a broken bone if it was broken and full of pain. So my message in the beginning of my series of talking about mental health and providing just moments of insight is to get your attention to understand your emotional pain is just as important as the physical pain. Taking time out to sometimes have to break out of that mindset that's connected to messages that has been passed from generation to generation, that counseling is for a certain ethnic group. Counseling is not for certain situations. You know, I explain to my clients that you really have a counselor within. You just come to me to help give you the guidance and education to discover a different level of your mental health that you can control, and you can control it beyond the medication. Because, you know, I've been in the field about 20 years, and I always say, let's get one thing straight. Your mental health is your responsibility. It's a willingness to get out of your comfort zone, change some of your belief system, and understand that happiness doesn't come from a bottle. And the medication, yes, the medication is fine within its place, but always go a little higher with the higher level of treatment and help you to understand that, you know, you wasn't born with medicine. So the medicine is just a temporary suppressant to get you from one moment to the next. But you know, too many times people suffer in silence because they fear being judged. They have the fear of talking about mental health and some of the issues that they're having, and they feel like, well, if I don't talk about it, it will go away. Mental health does not go away. Talking about mental health does not make you weak. In fact, it makes you brave. And every time you share your story, every time you seek help, you're helping to break the stigma and showing others that it's okay to be okay. Mental health can be okay if you can get to the level of just being okay to talk about it. Find someone. If you don't come to me, find someone. Be the first one to step out of your family system. Get new information. Help you to change those old distorted beliefs. Mental health struggle does not always look dramatic. Sometimes that's a belief that we will attract. It's talked about within our system. We look for dramatic actions and behaviors. Mental health can look like just being tired. How many times you just feel like you're tired of just being tired? Not physically tired, but mentally tired. Tired of having to come up with answers. Tired of other people's expectation that we feel like we have to fit and support. Sometimes mental health can look like the loss of motivation and feeling numb. You know, a lot of my clients that come in, they say, I just feel numb. I don't feel nothing. When I look over my shoulder and reflect back to past incidents, I know they happened, but I just feel numb. When that young person comes in, that may be the age of 10, 14, and sometimes even adult level, that's inflicting self-harm, the silent cry. You know, I've asked them why. And the number one, I feel numb. No one hears my voice. So mental health is not always going to be that dramatic struggle that's going to be before you, maybe sitting at your kitchen table, or maybe that's in the bedroom with you. Sometimes it's the silent tears. Sometimes it's the silence in the body language. So if you've been running on autopilot and feeling like you just exist, it's time to pause and check in with yourself. Awareness is the first step toward healing. Sometimes we have a definition of what healing is supposed to look like. Just same as we think mental health has a certain profile, a certain image. Mental health is going to look different on different people, on different age groups. Because when we talk about emotions being suppressed, emotions being avoided, it manifests itself in many different forms. So when we talk about mental health is mental health, and one of the factors in mental health is what do we do with our emotions? When we get beyond suppressing, or we cannot control our emotions, what do we do? Well, today I want us to say to you, your emotions is not your enemy. They're messengers. Let me say this again. Your emotions is not your enemy. They are your messengers. Anger might be telling you a boundary has been crossed. Anger may be telling you that it is time that you take care of yourself. Sadness may be inviting you to slow down. Anxiety, another emotion, might be asking or reminding you to be safe. Or maybe it's telling you that you're not safe. When we listen to our emotions, figure out what they're saying. Your body talks all the time. And we always have a choice to respond with compassion instead of judgment. What do I mean by that? When we respond to judgment, eventually we become our own worst enemy. We become the victim of our own thoughts. We become isolated from reality. We close a lot of doors of opportunity because of judging our own self, not allowing ourselves to be free, not allowing our own self to understand that your emotions are normal. You're going to feel anger. You're going to go through some depressing moments. Reality of life. But how many times we block our own healing process? The way that we think, our thoughts. I do a little exercise with my clients. It's called error thinking, which is distortion. For an example, thinking, projecting, already projecting, what's going to happen rather than trusting the process. So if I get my mindset in the projection,